Good morning and welcome to today's event, which will focus on the half-year financial result from Ascelia Pharma. Representing Ascelia Pharma, we are joined by Deputy CEO and CFO Julia Waras Brogren. This event will be recorded and following editing shared on our platform and on Ascelia's platform as well. All investors are more than welcome to submit questions during the event, and I will pass them to Julia, and then she will either during the presentation or after the presentation answer the questions. So with that said, I hope we get a really good event. And Julia, well, welcome Julia, and the microphone is yours.
Thank you, Klaus. It's good to be here. I'm looking forward to the discussion. I know you have some good questions as well. So let's start going through our, you can say, our activities and results for this last quarter and half year. The focus is on NDA approaching for Orviglance. I'll be making some forward-looking statements as part of this, so please pay attention to that. So at Ascelia, our mission is to develop and identify and commercialize novel drugs that help unmet needs for patients with different rare cancer conditions. So we have two assets. The asset we will focus on today is Orviglance. We're in registration phase. As I mentioned, it means we are almost we have almost submitted the NDA, and I'll come back to that. Orviglance is a first-in-class diagnostic drug for use in cancer in the liver. We have orphan drug designation from the FDA, and we address a global market opportunity of $800 million US annually. And as mentioned, we completed all the clinical development, and we're now submitting the application for the FDA. Our other asset is a phase 2 ready daily tablet formulation of a well-known chemotherapy, and I'll just go through a little bit of Oncoral as well. We are based in Malmö, listed on Nasdaq in Stockholm. So for Q2, the key events, some continued progress in the scientific community with Orviglance. The first one here is a poster presentation at a conference that's focused on, you can say, payers and industry players. It's a burden of illness, as we call it, real-world data around our target patient population. And then we had a full publication in investigative radiology around Orviglance. It's a reread of an earlier phase 2 study using the same methodology as our phase 3 study. We also have the exercise of the warrant series TO1, which were issued as part of our rights issue last year. And we raised gross proceeds of 43 million Swedish from this warrants exercise in April. We had our annual general meeting, and after the period, we updated the timeline for our NDA submission, and it will be submitted now early September. So that was an update of, we said, first half of August, and now it's early September. So a couple of weeks extra. We have two focus areas at the moment. One is to advance Orviglance to approval, timely submission and approval by the FDA of our orphan drug with an optimal label. And this year we have communicated the conclusions from our meeting with the FDA in advance of the submission in Q1. And then, as mentioned, our submission will happen early September, so very soon. Our other focus area is to secure partnering and commercialization readiness. So our strategy for launching Orviglance is to work with a commercialization partner, or perhaps more than one. This is of course key to bringing Orviglance to market. We also need to make sure that we're ready from a, you can say, product and manufacturing perspective. So we are also working with manufacturing partners to ensure we have Orviglance in the right quality available at launch. So little bit about Orviglance here, and we can also take questions along the way. We're very excited about the opportunities for Orviglance, and here's why. We are addressing a well-defined unmet need for liver imaging in cancer patients who also have impaired kidney function. I'll get back to this one. We have a global addressable market opportunity of $800 million US annually. We've completed clinical development and have really strong results, not least from our global phase 3 study. We have commercial scale manufacturing, and now our focus is on the regulatory filing and approval and on the commercial partner. So back to the unmet need here. Cancer in the liver is a key part of cancer care. And that's because not only primary liver cancer, but especially liver metastases are quite common in many cancer types. So often it's the first time of the first metastases detected, and often also the ones that could cause mortality for the patient. So colorectal cancer, metastatic breast cancer, and so forth. Liver metastases are very common. So what's important is the detection of these metastases and to potentially plan a surgery or drug treatment and to follow up. And the gold standard for this is an MRI scan. And in MRI scanning, the standard of care is to use a contrast agent. So it's a diagnostic drug that improves the image compared to an MRI without contrast. And these contrast agents generally available today are based on gadolinium. It's a toxic heavy metal. It's excreted through the kidneys. So it was discovered that patients with kidney impairment, especially those with severe kidney impairment, had some significant safety risks, in particular a side effect called nephrogenic systemic fibrosis, which is quite mortal as well. And therefore, a black box warning was put on all the labels for these gadolinium contrast agents. And that's the unmet need that we are addressing with Orviglance. So Orviglance is a diagnostic drug for MRI imaging. It's specific to the liver because it's taken up by the healthy liver cells when it's ingested orally, as Orviglance is, and it's based on manganese. So not associated with any of these side effects that we know from gadolinium. So we've completed clinical development in total 9 studies with very consistent positive efficacy and safety results, not least the phase 3 study. And in total, almost 300 patients have been part of the clinical development program.
So Julie, may I interrupt you just with a specific question about your phase 3 data? There's a question here, it's a little technical though, but really good question. Why wasn't specificity included as an endpoint in phase 3? And what is the main reason for comparable low specificity in phase 2? How will this impact clinical use and pricing, given it makes it harder to evaluate long-term clinical benefit without no specificity? Did you get everything, Julie?
I think so.
Otherwise, I will follow up.
So sensitivity and specificity are measures of success that are used in when evaluating some diagnostic drugs. Essentially, it's saying, does the patient have a lesion? For example, sensitivity, specificity, does it not have a lesion? What is interesting for this, for Orviglance, and actually for the gadolinium agents as well, is that you need a standard of truth. You need to say, for example, if you've done a biopsy, you know it's a lesion. Then you can use a diagnostic drug to say, do I find it? Yes or no, if that makes sense. But if you have an unenhanced comparison, or even if you compare to gadolinium or 2 gadoliniums against each other, there's no way of, you don't have a truth. If you have Orviglance and the gadolinium, and one has a lesion, the other doesn't, which one is right? So that is why the FDA and both for Orviglance, but also for the gadolinium products approved today, the standard is to measure visualization on a scale. How how is the contrast to the background? How is the border delineation on a scale of 1 to 4? So that's how you measure success. So when the only studies where there's sensitivity and specificity, it's because it's already confirmed to be a lesion or there's a biopsy or something. So it's not a standard to use it in this world. There was a phase 2 study, as mentioned, with Orviglance that did use sensitivity and specificity, but actually you can say that is isn't really you can't say scientifically that a gadolinium is more correct. So that is exactly why the FDA is using different requirements, and that's why we've done a reread of that study, which is exactly the one that was published recently in a full publication, and the results have been presented at conferences as well. So not having specificity and sensitivity will not impact commercially, because it's the standard for in the industry. It's what the FDA is used to, and also in clinical practice. So I think that was the questions.
I think that's a very good answer to that question. Yeah. But of course, if the participant have a follow-up question, he or she is more than welcome with a follow-up question. Yeah. Just if I may ask another question, it's more about the target market. And I know you have a slide on that as well with the 100,000 scans. As I remember, it's 2 per patient. Could you just briefly answer this question? In the estimate of roughly 100,000 unenhanced scans that you use at the target market in the US, is that only follow-up scans, or do they include scans where diagnostic capabilities are necessary with a dynamic phase?
So it is the addressable market for Orviglance here is defined as patients who have undergone abdominal imaging procedures and who also have severe kidney impairment. So this is based on real-world data, market research. In the US, it's 100,000 procedures, as you said, and roughly 50,000 patients. This includes both enhanced and unenhanced, and it includes all types of imaging. The vast majority of imaging will be for planning of treatment, for follow-up. If we go back to this slide, you have colorectal cancer, and you do routine scans to see if you have any lesions in the liver. And then when you see these, yes, there is a point where you want to make sure it's cancer, but you will plan surgery. You could plan drug treatment and follow up and so forth. So the vast majority is actually follow up and planning of treatment and so forth of these scans. Yeah.
Thanks a lot, Julia. Please carry on with the presentation, and then we take some more questions further down.
Let's do that. So we are now working on just the last bits for the submission of the NDA, the new drug application for the FDA. And the key milestones on the way were of course the phase 3 results that I mentioned. Also, the full study report came in Q4 last year. Conclusions from our meeting with the FDA, very constructive, very precise feedback to us, which is really about how everything is presented in the NDA. And of course, that's a lot of documentation. Now it's early September. It's very close. So very exciting. About the addressable market, I mentioned the $800 million annually, and that is specifically for the patient population that falls under this black box warning for gadolinium agents, and our strategy is to commercialize through partners. And we talked a little bit about this, the addressable market based on real-world data. This is the US case. Actually, we can also see that a lot of these patients are found at the larger hospitals because they have many complications, cancer, metastases as well, which means advanced progressed cancer, and also severe kidney impairment. So it could be patients on dialysis. So 400 accounts in the US really cover the main part of this market. We've also done a lot of research and strategy work into access and pricing in the US, and for this unmet need, we see a really attractive pricing opportunity for $3,000 to $4,500 per dose. So in clinical practice, physicians tell us that they are concerned about the issues and safety concerns with gadolinium, not least this nephrogenic systemic fibrosis. And quite a few physicians have experienced cases of NSF, although these black box warnings have been in place now for quite some years. Market research tells us that this unmet need is recognized in clinical practice. Also, when we speak to experts, they're saying, you know, we have to be accountable as physicians, and therefore we really see a value in having an option that is not based on gadolinium. So that's the clinical unmet need. There are other concerns with gadolinium that are really picking up in the industry in terms of discussion and more research also. It's well known that gadolinium is retained in all tissue, brain, other organs, and there's some research and scrutiny going into understanding could it have any long-term safety effects. We also know that gadolinium contaminates our water because it's excreted, as mentioned, kidneys into urine. It's hard to clean from the sewage system, and so you can actually measure it in drinking water and even Coca-Cola cans in larger cities. So there's also some additional work to be done around understanding the long-term effects here. So the industry is responding. There are some low-dose gadoliniums that one is launched, another is on its way to market. There's an earlier stage full body, so an intravenous version of a manganese-based contrast agent. So it's not liver specific like Orviglance, and it's of course also early stage. So we are really excited to be the first to really come with a non-gadolinium agent and be first movers in this space, starting for Orviglance part in liver imaging. So partnering is our strategy. That's really our what we see the best way to balance the investments required with the revenues for Ascelia. And it also means that we can leverage the existing capabilities of a player already active in the market, not only in the field team, sales, medical, but also in a lot of the background capabilities that you need in this industry. And these discussions are ongoing and progressing. So we, of course, are working hard on the partnering track as well.
There's actually, Julie, if I may interrupt again, there's a lot of questions regarding partnering, and I think we could take a couple of them now. So if you could just, paint the big picture for partnering model, because there's several paths you can follow. One is, a local partner, global partner, but you can also co-partnering the project. Could you elaborate a little on that, so we could get a healthy discussion about partnering later on?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. There are many models. Everything from acquisition of the asset to licensing. You can do, as you say, co-partnering or co-promotion is another option. There are some established, you could call it outsourcing organizations, and for often for smaller indications, it's not uncommon actually to work with someone who has all the capabilities, but it's more as an outsourced or service. So we are looking at, of course, we need to look at all the options, but what we want, of course, is to have the best possible revenue compared to the investment. So we need to evaluate these options against each other. And I think, it makes good sense to work with someone who actually has all this in place.
You have a lot of good cards on hand, and if we look into the space right now, the big players but they're really focused on late stage companies like you. with a strong data package
Yeah.
and with an unmet need. So you fulfill a lot of these things. So and we've been talking about partnering for a long time. Do you expect to enter into partnership before year end, or will you wait until you get the approval from FDA? I know it's a difficult question to answer, but could you elaborate a little on that, Julie?
I can tell you that you will know when a partnering deal is signed. So, I mean, we haven't said anything specific, and it doesn't make sense either to say it, because things take time and it's not signed till it's signed. So it doesn't make sense to be specific about that, neither for us, for the partner negotiations, or for our investors. When it happens, you will know.
Yeah, of course. Well, you have to publicize that. May I ask one more question, Julia? So are you allowed to? Of course, you're allowed to show the partner your data package, but are they involved in the FDA process in some sense? And if you sign before you get the approval, are they allowed into the process?
It all depends on the terms and the roles. So if you have a partnering agreement, there could be different preferences for roles. And it depends on the capabilities of the partner. Is it someone who's doing more specialty, more commercial arm only, or development as well? So that all depends. But it's not. I mean, technically, it's possible to involve someone, and it's also technically possible to transfer the file during review from one company to another.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you're of course interested in optimizing the outcome for you. Everything else would be stupid. But are you looking for? Because there's a question about I think Magnus attended a presentation some weeks ago that you're looking for a very big amount, larger than your market cap. And I could imagine that you can confirm that without be specific about the amount of money you expect from a partner.
If I can say how much we expect from a partner?
No, but just that you're of course looking for maybe a higher upfront payment and the composition of the package.
It all depends on the combined set of terms, right? And also the roles. How much do we invest? How much does the partner invest? It all depends on the overall set of terms. It's a combination of a share of the revenue, typically, right? A royalty setup, and then some milestone payments and upfront. So it's all about the totality of the terms. And we've taken this asset very far, as you said. That is the key. So we are in the category of very late stage, submitted, soon approved, knock on wood. But so that's what we are offering, right? And that's a very attractive place to be.
Thanks a lot, Julia. Please carry on with the last couple of slides.
Yeah. So I mentioned scientific community. Since our phase 3 results, we've had a lot of acceptances of our data, 4 orals, 5 poster presentations, and then this latest full publication in investigative radiology, which is a reread of a previous phase 2 study with the methodology of our phase 3, but also again the results are very consistent. Better visualization than unenhanced, but also comparative visualization to a gadolinium agent. So just a little bit about Oncoral and the financials. Oncoral, again, it's a tablet formulation of a well-known chemotherapy, irinotecan. And the tablet formulation means that you can dose every day. Typically, gadolinium, irinotecan is injected every 3 weeks, so you have a very high exposure and not for a continuous period of time. So if you can have that exposure more stable and every day, you can there's a potential for improving both the efficacy and the safety for patients. And we're looking into gastric cancer. That's quite attractive. It's an orphan disease, and we're typically this kind of drugs for phase 2 studies, it's a combination study. And we have a clinical collaboration with Taiho Oncology. They have a drug that's also oral, Lonsurf, so it could be an all-oral treatment for gastric cancer. And gastric cancer is interesting because, I mean, there is some clinical demonstration of irinotecan efficacy. It's recognized, it's an orphan disease, but irinotecan in the IV formulation is approved in other indications that are potential indications for Oncoral. And there's also clinical experience across many cancer types. So there's potential beyond gastric cancer. And now financials in Q2. Our costs were 23 million Swedish kronor, the operating loss. It's fairly similar to Q1. And of course, it's focused on the NDA submission preparation. And then we had 60 million end of Q2. We had the successful warrants exercise in April. And with the part of these proceeds, we paid back the outstanding loan to Fenja, and our runway now reaches at least the end of this year. We do have a reserve for potential repayment of the convertibles, 7.5 million Swedish with Fenja. It excludes, of course, financing from a partnering deal. Yeah, or more. Yeah. Good, that was, and then summarizing, our focus is to submit the NDA and to reach an approval with the optimal label and to secure the partnering and making sure a partner is ready for launch, not least from a manufacturing perspective.
Thanks a lot, Julia. And we already took a couple of questions, and I know that we have to finish the event in 3 minutes. But just very briefly, you're in a very good position right now with the company. If we see some delays to the FDA process or partnering, do you have a plan B for financing?
I mean, but the biotech industry is, until you're cash positive, is about financing. So any responsible company has plans and plans Bs, and of course we also have. But I mean, we have 60 million in cash and submitting the NDA. You know, as you said, that's also a lot of the costs in Q1 and Q2. So yeah, I think we're in a good position.
And then a final question regarding your orphan drug voucher. Could you just very briefly elaborate on that and when and how you will use it?
So we have an orphan drug designation. That's not the same as a voucher.
Sorry.
Actually, there's different things. So a voucher is something you can sell. We have an orphan drug designation for the drug, which is it's not independent of the drug. It is for the drug. Good. So that is in place and has been for throughout the last part of the clinical development. So that's sort of we're submitting as an orphan drug. And it will be reviewed as an orphan drug. So also a phase 3 study is designed in agreement with the FDA from an orphan drug perspective.
Thanks a lot, Julia. I'm sorry that we don't get more questions. If there's some questions that are not answered, please mail Julia, or you can mail me afterwards, and I will do my best to answer them. So by that said, first of all, I will like to thank all the investors for all the good questions. And of course, Julia, I would like to thank you for presenting on our platform. And hopefully I see you soon. I see you at least within a couple of weeks when you get the NDA in place. So by that said, I hope everybody will enjoy their Friday afternoon and also have a happy weekend. So we will end the event by that. Thanks a lot, Julia.
Thank you, Claus. Have a nice weekend.
Thanks a lot.